Good evening, everybody. How are you, Dawn?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, not too bad, thank you very much. Not too bad. Rather hot, but otherwise okay.
So the kids go back to school and the weather is 28 degrees. So that's kind of frustrating for every child in this country.
It's typical, isn't it? But yeah, what can we do? That's the great British weather, isn't it?
It is indeed. Unfortunately, we don't have Adam tonight. He's been on call and he's been called back in. So, hello, Adam. Hope you get home at some point.
Yeah, the joys of being a registered manager. So, just a reminder before we start that the views that Dawn and I expressed tonight are that of our own and not of our employers. There is a comments box, so please feel free to add your comments and your questions for tonight's guests. So, Dawn, how's your week been this week?
I've had a really lovely week. To start off my week, I was a judge for the Great British Care Awards for the COVID hero. That was so humbling and so lovely to do. I spent the whole day with two other social care managers who were unreal, and to hear all these inspiring stories and discuss with all these care homes and social care services everything they did throughout the pandemic was just massively humbling. And I got to sit all day and listen to these lovely stories. Although poor Nicholas, one of the judges, he did have to put up with my constant tears because everybody's just so amazing and it was so hard to pick. But that's how I started off my week, and it was lovely. And I'm really looking forward to attending the final gala night so I can actually meet these people as well, because it gives me the opportunity to have a proper conversation instead of on this computer.
Yeah, I saw plenty of posts around the other people that had been judges and the humbling stories and bits and pieces. And I did the judging last year, and it is really nice just to meet people in the sector, isn't it, and hear what they're doing and the above and beyond bits as well.
Yeah, I think, when we've both said, and Adam has said as well, that during the pandemic you kind of felt really alone at times, and you felt like you were the only one as a manager or as a service going through what you were going through. But to hear everybody's stories, everybody was kind of at that point, and it was just so nice to hear about staff working together and everything that these services and these people had done for the individuals they care for was amazing. And everybody who was nominated and got through is a winner in my eyes. It was so hard to pick, but and I just felt it was a lovely day, and I got to meet some really amazing people.
Well, I'll be in Birmingham, so I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, because you were judged yourself, were you not?
Yes, I was judged myself, yes, for outstanding contribution for social care. So, yeah.
Oh, I should have been on that panel.
Yeah. I don't think they would have allowed that. Might be a bit of conflict of interest there.
So I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Just really quickly.
I was going to say, I think we should discuss that. So, big social care news. So 5.4 billion over 3 years into social care. So, yeah, what do you make of it?
I think once again, it's just the Cinderella service. And I was so frustrated. I was aware of the 12:30 Commons discussion, and he opened it there was a big BBC banner saying social care reform, but he opened it in respect of the NHS. And 100%, the NHS is the heart of this country, but so is social care. And I became increasingly frustrated because the onus wasn't on that, although that's what the headline or the tagline was when they were all discussing it. And that created to me a whole lot of frustration. And then this afternoon, I think he was asked a lot of questions in respect of social care, in respect of the staffing, the workforce, recruitment, retention. And to me, I don't feel he answered the questions properly. I think he kind of skirted around the issue. I understand there's a lot of people waiting for operations and medical treatment, and we've got to get over that backlog. But unless we get people out of these hospital beds that could move into social care, these people still aren't going to get these treatments. And I'm aware of colleagues that are turning down care packages, full-time residential placements, nursing placements, because they don't have the staff or the workforce in order to ensure that they can give safe and effective care, and they're not going to put the service at risk. So I think the two needed to be intertwined, but to me personally, and that's my own personal opinion, it didn't come across that way, and I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, I think I was driving at the time that he was obviously answering the questions, but I agree. I felt like he was skirting around and not actually answering the direct question that was being asked. I think for me, it's whether that 5.4 billion is actually going to make it to the frontline care workers, which is what it's all about, or is it just going to end up with the local authorities that still want to, commission care the same way as it is, and will it actually make a difference? And I think, after the 3 years, will social care be prioritised like it is currently, or will half of that or most of that money go back into the NHS and social care doesn't get a look in again? So I think there's still a lot more answers that need questions need answering.
There were some journalists that were asking him questions in respect of those that are of working age that live in the social care sector at the moment and live in services, and how the reform is going to affect them. And to me, he didn't answer the questions appropriately for me to feel that plan was going to be constructively in place. It just felt like a speech that was written, an opportunity that was written, rather than having a defined plan in respect of social care. And then there was the passing of, but there'll be a white paper. How many of these papers have we had? How many different colours can we have? And I find it so frustrating. But we haven't got Adam here. And I know he has so much to say about this. So, I think
we can touch base. And hopefully by then we'll know more information about it as well. So we'll be in a better place to kind of discuss it, which would be good.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other news this week that you can think of? I can't personally think of anything else that's really happened.
I think it's been more of a case because this was kind of whispered around, wasn't it, that there was going to be an announcement. So this has kind of been the whisper in respect of this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So there's been kind of a build-up. And I think that's the issue as well. They build these things up. And I understand about the funding. I understand about tax rises. 100% I get it, because nobody could have predicted an unprecedented pandemic. But the whispers, I kind of came away disappointed. But that is kind of the only news that really, I think, because it's been little snippets here and there all week.
Yeah. Although I do think that social care has been in the media a lot more again in the last kind of week and a bit, which is great news. So it definitely raises the profile of social care, which is good. So I should probably say, otherwise Adam will tell us off. There will be a bell somewhere on your screen. I don't know where, but don't forget to hit subscribe, and it will notify you via email of any new episodes. I always forget to say that. So we've got two amazing guests coming on, but before we invite them on, I'm just going to invite Angela from Championing Social Care, who's going to come on tonight and just talk about Care Sector's Got Talent. If I can bring her on. Good evening, Angela.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me.
That's okay. Thank you for coming.
Interesting discussion about today. Sorry, I've just been lost in your conversation because it's been such a long time coming, and then I felt like it was a bit of a balloon without any hot air in it. It sort of fizzled out a little bit, and totally agree, Dawn. Not a lot of answers, but we will wait with anticipation, as we always do, very patiently in this sector, I think.
The problem is with me, Angela, I'm not very patient.
No, I don't think any of us are, Dawn, but we just sort of try, because I think, people that work in this sector smile, and it's hard work anyway. So we're used to the grind, but we're also used to it being a place where we all want to be. So we just sort of keep on going, keep on praying, and one day it will happen, I'm sure.
One day. So tell us all about this. Tell us all about Care Sector's Got Talent.
Okay, so so I'm the warm-up act for the My Home Life gang. So Championing Social Care is an initiative that does just that, I think. So lots of stuff in the press about the things that we want to improve and things that the government needs to improve. But I think most of us firmly believe that work within the sector is that we can also personally do things, hence why you're doing this, Caring View, and all the other things that are in social care, that we can also do things to raise the profile in a positive way and support each other, and bring a little bit of light to what can very often be dark, grey sort of news that we see. So Care Sector's Got Talent is just what it sort of says on the tin, really. It's an initiative from Championing Social Care. It opened on the 16th of August. It closes on the 19th of September. And what we want to see is all of those talented people that emerged during COVID, all of those people that, you know, we had to stop entertainers coming into the homes, and our teams just took over. So they were singing, they were dancing, they were playing the drums, they were doing magic. They were, you know, we even had a guy doing a bit of comedy. You know, all of this talent just emerged. You know, we always knew we were a talented sector, but not quite this bad, I don't think. So we just wanted to showcase it, because out of all the things that happened in COVID, and there's a lot of it that will stay with us and live with us forever, most of it not great, but actually there was some really powerful good stuff as well. And I think the talent that was happening within social care during COVID was incredible. And we have to remember that everything that's going on politically around social care actually isn't what our frontline workers, it's not their first priority. Our first priority is those residents and you know, service users that they look after both in care homes and in the communities. So yeah, it's a celebration of that. And I've seen some of the entries, which are just amazing. I don't know if you saw the one with the guy in the wheelie bin the other day on social media. But he sings to his residents in a wheelie bin, and it was his voice was incredible, but it was absolutely amazing. We just want people to send a video in to championgsocialcare.org.uk, click on the Care Sector's Got Talent little logo, and it only has to be on a mobile phone. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Keep it below 2 minutes, only because it's easier to load. Film yourself doing, or people. We've got a choir, I think, a residents choir that's entered. So pop it onto the website, and there's some amazing prizes. I can't announce them all because some are only being announced tomorrow. But today we've announced £500 worth of Love to Shop vouchers. And yeah, something quite special is being announced tomorrow that will be amazing for the social care sector and those that live in it and work in it. So yeah, it's exciting stuff.
I do keep trying to get Dawn to enter a singing video, but she's having none of it.
Can you not sing?
I'll continue working.
No, this is just mocking me completely, and he knows full well I can't sing either. So no, there's nothing talented in respect of my voice whatsoever.
Well, I'm sure. Do you know what? I'm a firm believer that everybody's got a talent somewhere. So dig deep, and let's see your name pop up on the reel.
So what kind of entries, aside from singing and choirs and things like that, is it art and things like that as well?
So it's, yeah, Care Sector's Got Talent is anything that is a talent, really. So there is some terms and conditions on the website, but they're very much around who can enter and obviously the content of what we can show on social media and things. But anything that's a talent. So tap dancing, we'd love to see. We'd love to. We've actually got an African drum thing coming through. So we've got all sorts going on. Do you know what? The wackier, the better. Anything that's going to make people smile and actually appreciate that we sometimes have to focus on the good things that are happening in social care to keep that profile being raised, and actually make people understand that don't understand social care, that there's a lot more to it than people think it is. A lot more to it.
Well, there you go, Dawn. You've got plenty of time now to enter a video. Let Angela be the judge.
Do you know what? I might surprise you now, Mark. I might actually send
Well,
one.
I'm actually not allowed to judge because with Majestica, who I work with, who in my day job, have got a couple of entries. But we've got some fabulous entries. So Hilary Woodhead, who's the chief executive of NAPA, is one of our judges as well. So who better than somebody like Hilary, who works with all of these talented autistic people every day. So yeah,
definitely.
It's really lovely, good people standing up and supporting the sector. So hope you guys can get involved and obviously share within all of your networks and things, so we can get as many people out there as possible.
So how do people enter? Did you say they go onto social media or email?
If they go onto the Championing Social Care website, which I think Mark's kindly put up on the bottom of the screen there for me, and within that you can actually learn all about Championing Social Care, because there's lots going on to Championing Social Care, not just Care Sector's Got Talent. But if you click on the Care Sector's Got Talent page, within there's a link and you can just upload your video really, really easily. We've not had anybody come back yet to say they're having problems, so fingers crossed it's working well. Rebecca Woolley, who looks after it for us, is a bit of a champion herself. So yeah, it's all good.
Perfect. Yeah, no, we'll definitely share it for you. And yeah, I'll dig deep onto my talent, because I can't think of one that I've got off the top of my head, but maybe I'll have to go and get some tap shoes or something and do a tap video.
You know what? I think it would go viral, Mark.
I'm thinking hairstyling.
Yeah, I'm thinking a special video at the Great British Care Awards. Yeah, on the stage.
Do you know how many times I took that video? It's so embarrassing, just dancing to myself in my kitchen. But yeah, it's all for a worthy cause. A bit like Care Sector's Got Talent. It's all for a great cause. So.
And Championing Social Care are obviously the very, very proud sponsors of the COVID Hero Award. So, and you can find out all about that on the website as well. So thank you very much, Dawn, for choosing our COVID hero for this year.
They were just amazing. It was so hard. It was so hard. They were just amazing people, everybody, and I can't wait to meet everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you very much, and we'll make sure we share it. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on and talking about it.
If anybody's got any questions, Mark, you, as an ambassador for Championing Social Care, I'm sure you can point them in our direction as well. So thank you very much. Lovely to meet you both again.
Cheers.
Yes. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, we're going to have to get making a video, Dawn.
I think that you need to do a hairstyling.
Do you know what? I hate the camera on this StreamYard. It's always back to front. I always look like a mess. But So let's bring on tonight's guest. So we're joined by My Home Life's Amy Simpkins, if I can get her on. We normally have Adam do this, and Joanne. Good evening. How are you both?
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for joining us. So we're talking about shared decision making today, which I'm really excited to learn more about. But first, I didn't know if one of you wants to go first. Maybe you, Amy, if you wanted to kind of introduce yourself and My Home Life.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, first of all, for having us on. So I work for My Home Life England. And for anyone who doesn't know, My Home Life is a research-based, evidence-informed initiative that's all about quality of life for people who live, die, visit and work in care homes. So that takes many different forms. We're all about quality of life. We run professional development programs for care home managers and those working within care. We're big on community engagement initiatives. connecting care homes and the people that live in them to the people, places and passions that are very special to them, and really kind of championing that community involvement because we know how important that is. And we have all sorts of resources on our website for quality of life in care homes. So yeah, we've been running this project with a group of brilliant people working in care homes, of which Joanne is one of them, and Adam as well. We're very sad that he can't be here today. But yeah, really looking forward to talking about the project that we've been running.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Joanne. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah. So I'm actually a registered manager. I work for the British Legion, but I've been in care for a long, long time. And we used to use My Home Life and the quality standards years ago, CQC as they weren't then. If you could match up to My Home Life, you had a really good inspection. So I was really excited when I was given the opportunity to work with them because it's something that I've known for a long time throughout my career. So, and I think it's a really important subject. So it was really great to be able to be involved. And what Amy did was bring together lots of great people from lots of different environments. So everybody brings their own best practice, their own sort of learnt lessons. And I think together we've done something really great, don't you, Amy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a real privilege, I think, definitely for me to be involved in those sessions. As you say, Joanne, we had a real mix of people up and down the country, different roles within their settings. And we met for a period of 6 months, once a month, earlier this year for a 2-hour session. And we just had really great discussions about the topic of shared decision making and what that meant for people. And yeah, pulled it together into a final guide that we're really pleased that we can now share widely with everyone.
So what was the general thing about shared decision? What was kind of the overall opinion from the kind of the working party around what shared decision making was?
I am happy to jump in, Joanne, if that's right. So this is the final guide that we've created. I'll hold it up here, which is on the website. But I think we just had some really great discussions around, I think, the nuance and the different levels of shared decision making, and I think what it means for different people in their settings. And you know, for some people that can be a decision like choosing tea or coffee, and that is a really important decision. But there are much more kind of complex decisions as well around people's care, around the environment that they're living in, and really kind of feeling empowered to feel that they have a say in decisions. And I guess if I was to summarize it in a nutshell, it sort of is that it's empowering people to be involved in decision making and feel like they are living life on their terms, and you know, being supported to make those decisions, and involving other people that might be around that person in decision making as well. It's a very collaborative process, and yeah, we've kind of come up with sort of tips, case studies, examples of how we might be able to practically support people in those scenarios to talk about shared decision making and make it real for the people they support.
No, that sounds amazing.
I think sometimes we forget that actually the people who live in our homes or wherever we work, our workplaces, we are working in their homes and it is their home. And I think we always have to equate it to our own home. Who would we want somebody to come in our home and say, you're going to have a blue wall there, or you're going to have this colour carpet? And actually, for me, it's so important that the people that live in, I run quite a big care home, but I would never dream of doing anything in there without consulting with the people that live there and asking for their opinions and input, even to recruiting staff, painting walls. I mean, at the minute, in one of our dining rooms upstairs, we've got like probably a whole rainbow of colours up there because the residents can't quite choose which one they want. And yes, it takes longer and there's lots more discussion, but how fabulous is that? And actually, at the end of the day, they will have that ownership. And I think it's so important that we actually walk the walk. We don't just talk it. We don't just say, yes, it's their home, but actually this is how we demonstrate it.
Yeah, I'll go on, Dawn. I can see you on
No,
mute.
I was just going to ask, how do you demonstrate that around capacity?
Well, I think, I mean, even as part of my home, we've got a lodge, so people with dementia live there. And again, you know, they can pick things like colours. They can point out what's their favourite things. We don't have to, just because we deem somebody hasn't got capacity, and that's quite a high level thing, isn't it? There's lots of capacity and still ability to make small decisions. And I think we just have to allow and enable people to do that. And we have to think outside the box about how we can make that happen.
So how would you do that? Do you have any examples of case studies or anything like that?
Well, there are quite a few, aren't there, Amy?
There's quite a few in this guide here. I mean, something that kind of springs to mind that one of the managers shared. I remember from one of the sessions, and she was saying, and this was specifically around power of attorney, and if you've got an individual who has power of attorney for financial decisions, still involving them in other decisions around well-being and choices and things like that. That capacity, it's the complex thing, and it's not kind of somebody does have capacity or they don't. It's kind of, as Joanne was saying, sort of meeting them on their terms and thinking creatively about how we might be able to empower people to be involved in decisions. Yes, it might take a bit more work. Some decisions somebody else within their support circle maybe could, if they are making decisions on their behalf. But I think it's, as you say, we want to support people to be involved as they're able to be, and also to the extent that they want to be as well. I think that's an important thing to highlight, that perhaps for some people it's, they don't want to be involved in decision making, and that's okay, but importantly they've had the opportunity to do so.
During your project, did you find that there were many providers that weren't kind of collaborating with the people that they support and look after? Because in my mind, I kind of think shared decision making is just something that all services should be doing. But obviously, it's obviously something that's not been happening across, the United Kingdom. For obviously you guys to have to get together and put together, a document that explains about that. What's been your experience there?
Well, I would say that so the 8 individuals that we were working with in our focus group are all absolutely fantastic, and myself and Steph, my colleague who was facilitating the sessions, I think we were really struck by the the brilliance and the nuanced thinking and the forward thinking of everybody that we had in our group, and we really recognised that these people kind of really were sort of the forefront of care. I appreciate what you're saying, Mark, that yes, that kind of isn't necessarily representative across the sector. And I think that was one reason why within this guide, we did want those sort of nuanced examples so that it would be accessible for people as to where they were coming at it. So kind of explaining shared decision making and what we mean by that, and giving different tools to support people with it. But then also having those more complex case studies. For example, there's a case study in the guide, real story shared by one of the managers, about a lady who moves to live in a care home, and she is a smoker. She's smoked for 55 years. She orders cigarettes to the home, and staff are quite concerned, and they understandably, naturally are concerned about this because she has COPD, and she's on oxygen. The case study goes through to explain that the manager had a conversation with this lady and realised that smoking was really important to her. She said it was the thing that brought her the most joy. She understood the health risks, particularly that she was on oxygen, and actually she couldn't be on oxygen as she went outside to smoke, but she still wanted to smoke, and that was her decision. Supporting staff through that process, reassuring them that they are enabling her to live on her terms. It's recorded in her care plan. They're not going to be in trouble if an incident was to occur because she has chosen to do so. This lady has the freedom to choose the amount of cigarettes she smokes each day. So I think just sort of examples like that are kind of more complex and sort of more kind of nitty gritty, and perhaps things that people would be more fearful of addressing, was sort of explaining that through case studies, and not afraid to kind of address some of the more difficult topics.
Yeah, I think that's really good, because I think quite often on some of the manager groups and forums that I'm in, I do see examples like that used quite often, and it's always around, cigarettes, or whether it's alcohol, and whether care providers, whether that's home care or care homes, whether or not staff can go out and purchase bits and pieces on somebody's behalf, or whether they can bring it in. So I think that case study is going to be, really beneficial to registered managers and, people supporting, individuals across social care.
And I think it's really important for the staff as well, because they think they're doing the right thing sometimes, don't they, by protecting people and doing the right thing that they think. But actually, it is about that choice. And if somebody's made that decision and they've been through that process, it's about supporting the staff to support that, so they don't feel that they're not going to get into trouble and they're not at risk or anything, and that it's okay. And then that documentation around it, because invariably we get questioned by somebody about some of these riskier risks that we take. But actually life is about risk, isn't it? And it's about supporting that risk and enabling people to live a good life that involves risk.
So can this kind of shared decision making, one of the questions that I got asked today by somebody who couldn't watch this evening, can this involve our healthcare partners, so people like GPs, district nurses? Because she kind of put to me that she really struggles with shared decision making as far as the professionals are concerned, because they may see a different view in respect of the care home.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so the case study that I just talked about, the smoking example, in that scenario, I think it was either the GP or a COPD specialist, or maybe the two individuals. I think it was, we talk about the manager working with those two individuals within wider health and social care to explain the lady's decision and the fact that they were supporting her through that, because they were receiving pushback. Saying sort of from a health point of view, there are risks to her smoking. We don't think this is a good idea. You should stop her having these cigarettes. And I think as a group, Joanne, we spoke quite a bit about shared decision making through the whole system, and it's very much not insular within a home or home care or community settings. It does have to be across the system, and I think that kind of is the premise, that being able to have those discussions and everybody being on the same page ultimately will improve people's quality of life. And as I said, My Home Life England, that's what we're all about, quality of life. It is a case of being able to see each other's viewpoints and kind of not being scared to sort of have those discussions, and also not being afraid to involve individuals that would have a say in that scenario, for example, like a GP.
And we talked, didn't we, about some decisions appearing to be unwise decisions, but actually for that person it's the right decision. And again, it's who sets that bar, who decides if it's an unwise decision. And a lot of talk around, and some services it's easier than others, isn't it? If you've got a really good relationship with your team, multidisciplinary team outside of wherever you sort of are, it might be easier, but we really have to advocate for the people that we are there supporting and working with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, go on, Dawn.
I was just going to say, so Joanne, what was your part in it?
So we had how sort of Amy had it is that we talked a lot about them, examples of where we had shared decision making, where it had been challenging, good practice. And then actually as a group, what we found was, somebody was saying, well, we do this, and saying, oh, yeah, we could probably adapt that and do that. So even within our own group, there was quite a lot of development and moving on, I think, and we were learning from each other all the time. And I think we came up with quite a lot of scenarios. And I think then Amy had to kind of tease out the ones that were going to be really applicable to lots of different people, because we want this to appeal to, not just people in care homes, people in all community settings. So I think it was really important that people could sort of pick it up and read it. And it's quite an easy read. There's nothing in there that's rocket science that's going to be really difficult for people to understand. But I think it's quite clear and gives support and guidance to people. So I think we all had a bit of a chip in on it, and it was really good. And I know I've used it with my sort of people who live in my service and my staff, and they found it quite we could do that, and that's really supporting what we do, or having conversations with relatives sometimes, because again, sometimes you're advocating for the people that you sort of work with and care for against their relatives, because they sometimes don't, particularly possibly with somebody who's living with dementia, because it's often, isn't it, well, they didn't used to like doing that, but all of a sudden they do like it. So we have to, we have to respect the person they are now. And if, they suddenly, want to eat bacon or whatever it is, and they never have done, that's fine. So I think there's, it's about giving people confidence, hopefully.
Yeah, and we had that instance with the vegetarian thing. We had a gentleman who had been a vegetarian for 35 years, and one morning he woke up and wanted a sausage sandwich, and the whole staff team were, oh, what do we do? Shall we call his next of kin and ask permission? And I was like, no, let's not. Let's give, if he chooses not to eat it after we've given it to him, we'll see, and we'll document and we'll discuss. But yeah, we've had that instance before, but I have never, gone through the instance, for example, with the lady who's smoking with COPD. So that's a really good example for other managers to be aware of, because I have seen discharge notes where hospital doctors have written no alcohol in capital letters on a discharge letter, or nicotine patches supplied, please continue. Well, what if that person, when they come out of hospital, doesn't want to continue with the nicotine patches? So I completely, this is amazing.
I think what's really good is that, I think it was you, Amy, that said that, we have to remember people, might move into a care home or start having care workers in their own home. And actually they've been doing things for, years and years that have become part of their life. And actually just because they start needing care, they shouldn't all of a sudden, lose the things that are important to them. Joanne, you spoke a couple of times about working with your team members, and I wanted just to explore that a bit more about kind of if there's any insight and any tips that you can share. So I think quite often, you do have managers that, might just roll something out and then the communication goes out about saying we're going to do X, Y, Z. And I think sometimes then they're met with a bit of a barrier from the care staff. It sounds like
2 weeks later it doesn't work, does it? Because everyone's like going, yeah, I've heard it all before. We'll do it for a bit and then we'll carry on like we always used to do. But again, I think it's about listening and ownership, isn't it? Because I always kind of say, your home is, or mine's a home. Your home is only as strong as the weakest person in that home. So you've got to involve everybody in what's going on. And I've got 265 staff, so it's quite a do that. But actually, everybody's voice is important. And it might be, the laundry lady that's just going to put in that bit of washing away that actually hears something really important that needs to be able to come back and feel that voice is really important. So for us, often I might get a bit of an idea because I'm a bit of a geek. So I'm on Twitter and I'm looking at things and I'm finding things. I'm thinking, and I go back with do you know what I've read? I think we could. And then they say, oh, hang on a minute. And people keep chipping in, and then somebody will go, well, I'll just go and ask so-and-so. And then this idea kind of builds out of something. But what it does is it has buy-in and ownership. Not everybody, of course, because you're not going to get everybody who's always going to do it. But I think if you can get the majority of people giving it a go and trying things. We recently wanted to start this daily diary for residents because, we have our documentation and it says, whatever it says. But actually, I wanted something that reflected and was a resident's ownership, that this is the sort of day I've had, or this is how I felt about today. They've been through a really rough time and they are very resilient, and we say that, and we look after veterans, so they are very resilient. And actually through the COVID pandemic they were more worried about everybody outside the home than inside their sanctuary, as they called it. So I think what we want to do is try to, and I had this crazy idea and it was like, oh, how are we going to make that work? And we've tried it and it didn't work the first time, so now we're trying something different. And I think you have to be big enough to say, well, that hasn't worked, but actually the idea is probably still good, so let's work on that. But it is about involving people, and we always say every idea is a good idea. It might need tweaking, but if somebody comes and just says, oh, this could perhaps do with just tweaking. Or we had a carer who, we'd said we wanted to look at somebody's sort of fluid intake for a particular reason. And she was saying, but we use so many different sort of cups. Is this cup the same as that cup? And how much is in this? So she just did this really simple thing. She measured the volume in all the cups and made this really pretty little chart that she handed out to everybody. And it was really simple, but it was so effective. And the residents could use it as well because they were like, oh yeah, that's how much that is. So it's, yeah. It takes time. All these things take time and nothing happens overnight. And I think as managers, me particularly, you want to like, oh, I've got this idea, let's do it. But you've got to be patient. You've got to work through the process sometimes and then go backwards and then go forwards again.
So for any managers that are watching I did the My Home Life leadership program, and I always remember being told, don't be a manager that just is like a seagull and swoops in, tells them off and flies off. So if there are any managers out there that, fly in, drop a bombshell, and then fly off again, but actually I'd like to work more in collaboration with my team, what would be your biggest tips, Joanne, for working with them?
Well, I think communication is really important, and we never always get that right. But it's better to tell somebody twice than not tell anybody at all. So it's just about that message and communicating, but actually asking people. We do this thing about what would you like your team or the bit of your department to look like. And because we're the Legion, we do poppies. So, everyone does their little poppy and they write in everything they would like. And then often when you put all those ideas together, there's some common themes running through it. And you think, well, actually, yeah, we could do that because everybody's kind of thinking the same thing. So I think it's about opening up the conversation. We don't know best. I'm not out there on the floor looking after people every day, as some of my carers are, or some of the housekeepers and people like that. They often see the solution. So listen to them and trust them, I think, and give it a go. What have you got to lose?
I'm really pleased you mentioned housekeepers, because I think sometimes they're just forgotten about, aren't they, so much, and the domestic staff. So yeah, really important to involve them.
We're just doing a bit of research within Rich, and they're looking at the experience of housekeepers and laundry, everybody, the back service sort of people during COVID. And one of the questions which was really interesting was, when they did the clap for carers, did you feel part of that? Did you feel part of that whole thing? And I thought that was really interesting, because it was like clap for the nurses and clap for the carers, but actually without our back support services we wouldn't be able to do that, would we?
No, definitely not. So this is all about empowerment. So is this about empowering the staff to associate shared decision making as much as it is with those living in the service, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to say, based on what Joanne's just been saying, so the guide's in different sections, and there's a section on supporting people living in the home, there's a section on supporting team members, and then a final one on supporting what we're calling a person support circle. So anybody that might be close to that person, friend, partner, family member, possibly an attorney, somebody in another capacity. And yeah, when you were talking, Joanne, it reminded me of some of the words in there around in the supporting team members section. It is very much about supporting staff to feel comfortable supporting people living in the home and decision making, but also feeling like they have a voice in their own place of work, as you were saying, in terms of management and being involved in decisions. So it's, I guess, as you asked previously, Dawn, it's across the system, internally and externally. And just thinking again about ways that we might do that, there is a resource in the middle of the guide around open and appreciative questions. And I don't know if sort of being appreciative is something that people have come across, but it's one of the key core My Home Life frameworks, and it focuses on what is already working well. It's a very positive kind of frame of mind, and it's about getting people to reflect about what's working well, what could we do more of to make this happen more of the time, rather than kind of focusing on the negatives. And I think again, that could be another way that managers or senior leadership could start conversations with staff and people working in the home, in terms of understanding where they're coming from, their thoughts on different scenarios, how they feel things are already going, and if they identify something that's positive, that's great. How can we, make that happen more often? So yeah, it's very much a whole team approach, and it's working kind of bottom upwards, I would say.
So Joanne, have you felt any resistance from it?
No, I think it's been really positive, and I think the format, and we did look at the format quite a lot, didn't we, Amy? Mm-hmm. And Adam, actually, if he was here, because he was the one with all the little scans and all that sort of stuff. He's a real geeky person in all of this. He was like, I can make that happen. Okay, you do that then, Adam. But I think because of that, it's quite accessible to virtually anybody. Somebody can read it, or they can click on it, or they can do the VR code. So there's a lot of ways that people can access it, and I think so it appeals to quite a lot of people, and it's quite an easy read. So it's quite easy to use in staff meetings. Put in your note on your notice board. There's posters, isn't there, Amy, in it?
Yeah, there's a section at the front, suggestions of how you might want to use the guide, and then as Joanne just said, there's a downloadable poster that can stand alone, and then we've also got a full audio version as well on the website if people just prefer or would want to listen to it on audio. So we're hoping that it's accessible for people in different ways, and you can kind of dip into it as well with the different sections that work as a whole but also stand alone.
I was having a flick through the guide earlier because Adam shared it with me, because I didn't realise it had been released yet. I popped it in the comments as well. But I found that there was a really useful imagery there that, managers could just print out and, like you said, just pop on the board. And it was around having conversations and just something so simple that, can actually benefit the people that we look after so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even without the decision-making bits, just people having conversations, how wonderful. I mean, the people that we look after, for us particularly, you know, they've got so many stories to tell, and sometimes just having that conversation and finding something out about that person, and then you can really enrich that life because you find little nugget of something out, and it can be involved in decision making, it can be involved in, you know, an activity or something that they want to do, or wish listing. So I think that starting that conversation is a really great thing for staff.
So Amy, if there was anybody watching this that wants to get involved in My Home Life, so something like this project you've just done, or some of the other bits and pieces that are on My Home Life website, what would your advice be?
Oh, well, first of all, we would absolutely love that. We are always looking for people working within social care to get in touch with us and share examples of what you've been up to, great practice. We are hoping that the wonderful group that Joanne's been part of, that we've been working with an individuals, 8 of them, we're hoping that we might be able to continue that on, and perhaps more in an informal way, sort of a community of practice, I think we might be able to call it. So yes, if anybody is interested, probably to email me would be great, but also the My Home Life website for anyone who's new to My Home Life would be a great place to start, and as you can kind of see the resources, and there's a contact us button. But yes, definitely we are always looking to hear from people within the sector, because that's how we stay in touch as well. And as you said, that we deliver the leadership programs that you've been through, Mark, but you know, we are always wanting to hear from people.
That's great. And are you still doing the leadership programs for anybody that wants to? Because I'm a big advocate for them, you know. And I think, like Joanne said, I think back in the day, it was all about, I think a lot of people did it because of the CQC. I remember I joined because I was working in a learning. I saw it on Twitter, and I remember dropping, my local authority wouldn't put me on it because I wasn't elderly. I wasn't an elderly service. And I remember directly messaging Tom Owen being like, I really want to do this, not because of the CQC, just because some of the things are amazing that I'm hearing about it. Yes, do you still do them? Are they up and down the country?
Yes, we do. Or? Yeah, they are running. They are up and down the country. We also as well have just launched a new online program that we're calling My Home Life England Bite Size. So similar format, but it takes place online, which might be more accessible for some people. But yes, definitely they are still running. And obviously we had a bit of a break through COVID, but yeah, we're really excited that they are back up and running. So definitely for any managers or people working within care that are interested in our programs, we would definitely love to hear from you.
No, that's great. And I think for me, the leadership program for me, it just a bit like the guide, with just bite-sized pieces that you can put into your service and actually make such a big difference to the people you support. Joanne, you've obviously been through it. How did you find the leadership program?
Well, I think I was just going to say, actually, just even on the website, you just go on and there are so many resources on there that if, you know, almost anything that you want to look at, and our guide is just one of many guides all along the same format. So there's so many bits and pieces that you can just take away that are accessible to people. There's lots of different formats. There's the posters, you know, getting a bit smarter with technology. But actually, there is so much to take away, and I think it's one of those things that you can just dip in and out of. And it's so positive. It's so about the people that use the services and the staff. So it's all about that quality. And I think if anything is coming out of where we've just coming out from, and God knows where we're going into next with what's on the news today. You know, we need to grab onto the bits that are really good, don't we? And we need to start really taking ownership and shouting out there and having a voice. And instead of being done to, we need to be doing now. We've got to take a bit of an opportunity, I think.
I'm so pleased to hear that feedback. Thank you.
So do you have any top tips for shared decision making between the both of you, for anybody that's watching?
Well, yes, there are lots in the guide, but I guess there's 3 on the poster, so maybe I could pick one of those. So we actually decided, in terms of language, we, rather than top tips, which is what we'd originally called them, we've referred to them as positive practice thoughts. So sort of a little bit more neutral, but they're positive and they're not kind of top in terms of prescribing action. But let's have a okay. So a culture of positive risk taking. I think, well, this is sort of similar to what I was saying before, but what are we doing to understand staff fears around shared decision making? So that the smoking example, the worry that it might come back to you, and how are we supporting staff to be able to feel open to talk about the topic, their fears and their worries, and how do we celebrate when it's working well? how are we recognizing that, and what are we doing to ensure that it can happen more often? And then another one, trusted individuals. So, for example, if there's a relative who speaks highly of someone else who works in the home, it may not be a carer, it could be somebody in the laundry room, gardener, etc. If they have developed a close relationship, then perhaps that individual could also be involved in shared decision making. For some of the more tricky decisions, they have a relationship of trust with that person. So can we build on that in some way? I think it's about making people feel supported and safe. They are just two, but I think there's throughout the whole guide, I think there's sort of 20 or so in the different sections.
Amazing. So how can relatives get involved?
Do you mean generally in shared decision making?
Yeah.
So the process. Yeah. So I think a really good place to start would be the positive practice thoughts that we've got in the section on supporting a person support circle. So relatives would fall into that section. And there's things in there to consider in terms of the involvement that they might already have in the home. Multidisciplinary meetings, or friends of our care home meeting, is there that opportunity for relatives to have their voices heard and kind of have their say? Do they sort of understand the culture of the home in terms of the risk-taking stance, the approach to unwise decisions? Something that was very interesting actually and raised by one of the managers in the group was not necessarily assuming people's understanding of care and really working with them to understand their viewpoints in terms of decisions. So just a very small example, there was a daughter whose mum had moved into a care home, and she wanted her mum to have rails on her bed because she was sort of worried that she wouldn't be safe if there wasn't rails. And she was adamant that this should be something that was happening. But the lady did not want rails. And the manager then sat down with the daughter and they had a discussion about it. And she really kind of just wanted to hear her point of view. And it turned out that it was very much from a fear point of view. And she didn't sort of appreciate that actually for the lady involved, it would be more restricting and more negative for her quality of life to have those rails there. And actually, on balance, the more positive action would be to not have those rails. And once she kind of understood that point of view, she was very on board with the decision that had been made. So I think kind of not assuming necessarily that people are sort of all coming from the same stance and understanding. And
I think that's really important.
Conversations.
Yeah, I think that's really important at the minute, because we've had a period of time when, normally relatives would be in and out of the care homes or the environment willy-nilly. And obviously this last 18 months has been so challenging because some people have literally dropped their relative, their loved one off at the door and said goodbye to them. And, they haven't even seen their rooms properly or anything. So I think we really have to work hard now to really build those relationships that we would just normally have had, because people would have popped in and we'd have said, oh, by the way, can we just have this has happened and we've just been talking about this. We've really got to make these extra efforts now to do that. And I had somebody come in this week. This lady's got quite a lot of children. One's essential caregiver, and this one daughter had never seen her room. And she, it's a really powerful and emotional thing, because they've handed over their most precious item, thing to you. And really have to trust you, and we haven't had that opportunity to build those relationships that we had. And so I think involving people as much as possible now and really explaining what we're wanting to do, that we do want to keep them safe, we want to keep them well, we want to keep them healthy, and we want them to have lots of well-being and activity and a life, and how we can work together. And I always say, families, we know that much about the rest. They know that much because they've had that much more exposure to them in their life, and we have to work in partnership with people. Sometimes it's tricky, but we have to do it.
No, definitely. And I think the relative point from you, Joanne, and Dawn is so important. I think the pandemic, so many more relatives that might not have been involved, actually now want to be involved. And those that already were involved actually are like, I want to be even more involved. So I think, definitely need to make sure that we involve them in the day-to-day decisions. And I think sometimes, because of whatever reason, I think quite often, unfortunately, they do get forgotten. I think in the heat at the moment, you kind of get on and do it, don't you? And then it's not until you take a step back and you think, oh, actually, we should have involved the daughter or the son or whoever it is.
No, I think you see it on social media a lot, especially at the moment, and especially with visiting and things like that, where relatives are saying, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I visited on Thursday and this had happened, that had happened, nobody told me anything. So I think that relatives being involved in something as important as this is so vital at the moment.
Yeah.
To ensure that there's that co-production element and that everybody is working in partnership.
Yeah.
Because if not, relatives do feel pushed out, and I've seen it myself. And the last thing you want is, like Joanne said, some of the most important people in a resident's lives to feel excluded from care or decision making.
Yeah.
I think you raise a good point, Dawn, because we get so many messages, don't we, from people saying, what are the most up-to-date guidance for care home visiting, or where are we at now, or the whole essential caregiver status, because the care homes are refusing it. And, you know, actually, we're 19, 20 months down the line for COVID. There shouldn't be a provider out there that, you know, for the relatives not to know what the guidance is, to me, just seems completely ludicrous. But yeah, we probably get contacted 4 or 5 times a week about what the guidance is, or for advice. So yeah, I think that's a really good point to remember, is the relatives.
Absolutely. And we all have to pull together to make it work, don't we? We have to put the resident in the centre of everything that we do. And you know, that's such a big part of their lives. So it has to be that we work in partnership, as Dawn said. You know, we've got to pull together and make it work properly.
No, definitely. I'm conscious of time. The hour just seems to fly by every week. Like, I look at the clock and it's like 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like 50 odd. But Amy or Joanne, is there any final thoughts or anything you want to mention around shared decision making that you can think of before we end?
I think just do it. Just start off small if it's a challenge, but just do it. Get it into the culture.
Great top tip. Amy,
That's a
anything
great
from
top
you?
tip. Well, just I think you've kindly posted the link to the guide in the comments, but for anybody who can't see it for whatever reason, please visit the My Home Life website. It's there. Just take a look at it. It would be great if you were able to use it in your setting. And also, we want to start a conversation. So if there are any examples or feedback that you have, please get in touch and let us know. And we'd love to know how it's worked for you, if it has helped, or if there's anything that could be done a bit differently. We kind of, this isn't it. It's not kind of done now and sort of pushing the box. We want it to be part of a continuing conversation. So, please do get in touch.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we'll make sure that we share the link to the publication and your main website as well, so that people can get in touch. Because and I think definitely recommend anybody watching to get in touch. Well, both, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So we've got an announcement. So we obviously hear, continuously about the mandating of the vaccine. So this week we have a one-off show on Thursday evening at 7:30 again. We're going to be joined by Sonia Ray from Nectar HR, who's joined us a couple of times around, HR. It's definitely to do with COVID and the vaccine. We've gone out to a number of care manager forums and groups that Dawn, Adam and I are part of, and we've sought some questions that managers have got at the moment around the vaccine. So if you've got any, please do get in touch. Sonia's going to be going through them from a HR point of view. Obviously, the deadline is looming for staff to have their first vaccine. So yes, please join us on Thursday evening. And Dawn, what have we got next week?
So next week we have Jane Connery from the Care Campaign for the Vulnerable coming to talk to us about sustained safety monitoring within care services, and also about unfair eviction. So she wants to discuss unfair eviction during the pandemic. So I think it should be a huge topic, especially in respect to the safety monitoring. That's something that she's been campaigning for a long time to become a standard within care services in communal areas. So Jane is coming to see us next week.
Thank you very much. And if there's nothing else from anybody, I will bid you all farewell.
Thank you very much for coming this evening, both of you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, we'll make sure we share the publication and the website and bits and pieces. So but thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again for joining us tonight on The Care View. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Whilst you're here, check out some of the other videos that we've got online. If you've got something that you think may be interesting for us to discuss, or if you want to guest spot with us, then drop us an email to thecaringview@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, find us on Facebook. All the information is down there in the description box. But until then, have a good evening, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.